that's worse than being ill. Well, maybe that caused my sudden.
It's in my car.
Oh, water in that. Is there water in there?
No, I don't need it in here. I don't look at it during the meeting like some people I know.
You're good. I hear you well.
I read a study
Thank you, sir.
for
I can hear you now.
about an hour a day.
Oh, my drink. So we can't go too long or I'll start choking to death.
Better leave this water close by.
We must be there.
You're about to click on 10 seconds.
Hey, good morning. How are you? Thank you.
Welcome, everyone. I'd like to call to order the February 24th meeting of the Charlotte County Airport Authority and ask that you silence or turn off your cell phones and invite those who wish to join us for an invocation and the Pledge of Allegiance.
Shall we pray? Dear gracious Heavenly Father, we come together this morning as an airport authority, and we just give you the honor, the glory, and praise for all you accomplish for us and the hedge of protection that you provide. We ask now that you provide the board members wisdom, guidance, discernment, increased IQ, and abilities that we may critically think are issues that we are reviewing for the month. And once again, we give you the glory, the honor, and the praise, and we ask and thank you again for the hedge of protection that you provide. In Christ's name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Catherine, would you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, please?
Please join me. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you all. Roll call. Kelly?
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Mr. Andrews?
Here.
Miss Oliver?
Here.
Mr. Carr?
Present.
Mr. Hansick?
Here.
Mr. Parrish?
Here.
Mr. Hurston?
Present.
Mrs. Coppola?
here.
I've lost my monitor. I tried to turn it on, it's just dropped off.
Let me get.
Okay, I think we can proceed with the next item on the agenda while we're fixing our technical assistance. And with that, any citizens that wish to address the board on items that are on the agenda or anything else, you've got a couple of minutes. Please identify yourself, Mark.
Good morning.
Good morning.
For the record, my name is Mark Kuharski, councilman from the city of Punta Gorda and city liaison to this body. I'm here this morning to read the following official statement into the record. At the February 16th, 2022 Punta Gorda City Council meeting, a suggestion was made during public comments that the city of Punta Gorda had the legal authority to require developers within the city to grant aviation easements to the airport if proposed developments were located within a flight path to the airport. An aviation easement is an interest in private property and the air overhead, which grants to an airport the unobstructed use and passage of all types of aircraft in and through the airspace to and from an airport. Pursuant to FAA's form aviation easement, the rights acquired pursuant to said easement include the right of an aircraft to, and I quote, cause noise, vibrations, fumes, deposits of dust, fuel particles, incidental to the normal operation of aircraft, fear, interference with sleep or communication, and any other effects associated with the normal operation of aircraft taking off, landing, or operating in the vicinity of an airport. An aviation easement conveys interest in private real property for which the property owner is compensated. Neither an airport nor any other governmental entity may compel a private property owner to grant an aviation easement without violating the due process clauses of the U.S. Constitution and the Constitution of the state of Florida. The U.S. Supreme Court in Nolan versus California Coastal Commission held that without payment of reasonable compensation, a government agency cannot withhold development of approval requested by a private property owner unless the owner granted an easement for the benefit of the public, where such easement was for the purpose of mitigating harm to the public caused by the development. The burden is upon an airport to negotiate with a private property owner for the purchase of an navigation easement, not upon a local government to extort the same in return for development approval. End of statement.
Thank you. To bring everyone up to date, as I understand it, our staff is working with the property owner's legal counsel in trying to find a solution to the navigation easement, and we'll just leave that where it is. But we'll move on with the agenda items.
Mr. Chair, are we opening this up for discussion of?
Yeah, why, if you would like.
Wait a minute, public comment.
Yes, public comment.
So if
That's
there's
it.
nothing, you haven't asked if there's anybody else.
Yeah. Anyone else wish to speak to the item? Mr. Murray?
Good morning.
Morning.
Greg Murray, City Manager, City of Punta Gorda. I don't wish to speak to that item, but I do wish to provide some clarification. I haven't been able to attend the last couple of meetings, but there was comment made about a position of the city of moving flights from this airport to another airport. And I needed to clarify that the person that made that comment was an A to B email at a staff level for a project-specific discussion. Recommendations weren't in his purview, and that was addressed, but it certainly was not the position of the city of Punta Gorda, nor was it my position, nor does that person report to me. He's someone that's a project manager in our one department, and the city of Punta Gorda's position is specifically that we support the airport wholeheartedly, appreciate the job you're doing and the economic impact it has on our city and surrounding community, and we will continue to do so. But in the future, a simple phone call would probably be more appropriate to address these kind of situations. And that's all I have, but I apologize. I'm, like I said, a day late and $1 short, but I haven't been able to be here since, so.
Thank you for being here today.
And Mr. Murray and I had a conversation, I guess it was last week on that, and got the clarification. And thank you for it.
No, thank you. You can take my hand. Thank you very much.
Anyone else wish to address the board? I guess we can open it up for conversations related to public comment.
Mr. Chair, I don't know if this is better discussed under the liaison reports, but it's up to your purview. I did happen to watch the City of Punta Gorda, their council meeting, in which our chair attended as liaison and introduced himself as the chair, and then went on to discuss this navigation easement, which is a topic that has not come before this board. Nobody on this board has voted as to what position we want to take. We haven't been fully apprised as to the development, what this navigation easement request would look like. And frankly, I have a real problem with that, because I share the city's concerns that this is an unconstitutional taking to hold a development hostage, a development project hostage, and not grant a requested zoning request unless they grant us this navigation easement, and without us, providing any consideration for that. Not providing the developer, compensation for this very specific taking. The city has zoning regulations in effect, but we have not been fully apprised on this, and so for staff to take the position that they are requesting the city hold this development hostage until we get this navigation easement, and for our chair to go to the city council meeting and represent us as the chair, not as an individual citizen with an opinion on this matter, that concerns me, because we have not voted on this, and I would not be in favor of an illegal taking or eminent domain in respect to this development. So those are my thoughts on the subject.
Your comments are so noted.
Mr. Chair. It has, of course, Kathleen's been here longer than I, but I've been around quite a while, and I know Jim can testify, and I see we have Gary Quill in the audience, but we do have, and we have discussed over the years, these avigation easements. And I didn't know that the city of Punta Gorda, their zoning department, or the city council was requiring this avigation easement be signed, but I think it was Governor Scott fixed the problem with our permitting process in land development, that an entity like the city of Punta Gorda can hold up their approval because SwiftMud hasn't issued their permit or DEP hasn't issued their permit. They can't hold a project up for other type department approvals. And so the FAA, I mean, it may be their airspace, so there's all kinds of complications. But James, looks like you're ready to.
No, I mean, it has been this board's direction for many years, and the state's direction, that entities such as the airport, the city, and the county do whatever is necessary to protect airport uses. The city and the county have to follow very stringent guidelines for development in and around airports. We absolutely never demanded. We requested the city incorporate this into their approval. We have also been working with the developer. We do this with county developments. The Loop development, when it was underway, had already agreed to sign it before they went into rezoning. It's something we do on a regular basis. I think it's a mischaracterization to say we're holding them hostage. We simply sent a request to their attorney and when we got the zoning thing, is that anyone with interest or comments to please send it. We sent it to the correct location. We have not made any further demands except to provide them with our form navigation easement, and have not had any further comment with the city.
So I think it'd be a good idea.
Actually, James, that's not correct. The city has responded saying they will not do anything associated with it.
Yes, and that's it. They said they will not. So we have not, beyond that, moved forward with anything.
And it might be a good idea to discuss it at a workshop or something like that, as Commissioner Oliver has said, and good idea.
And I think, sorry.
That's all right, I'm good.
I think it's important that this board discuss these matters before a request is made from a governmental entity to another governmental entity about something that involves that other governmental entity's jurisdiction and their project. So, whether or not we want to enter into negotiations with the developer to negotiate an avigation easement, that's fine. But if you look at the avigation easement statute, it refers to Chapter 73. That's the eminent domain statute. I would not be okay with us going through eminent domain proceedings to require them to grant us an easement. And that's something that we need to decide as a board. That is board policy. You all might have different feelings on it, and that's fine. You can outvote me, but I'm opposed to eminent domain, and this board needs to have discussions about it without staff and the chair taking a position and making it seem as though we have voted on it and made a decision as a board. I think that we need to correct the record and make sure that this misrepresentation does not hold, and perhaps send a letter to the city letting them know that Mr. Hansick was speaking as an individual citizen and that this board has not voted on the matter.
I would just like to interject that, if I may, Mr. Chairman, we may have acted on that, Commissioner Oliver, as another board. So, I mean, that's history. We'd have to review it.
Yeah. Absolutely, but we have not yet been apprised of it. We've not been fully informed about it, and we might have supported the decision. But the fact is, you put the apple before the cart. We can't. You can't undo what's done. We might still change our minds, but we need to make that decision as a board. Our chair does not have the authority to bind this board to a decision. Staff doesn't have the authority to make policy decisions. They have to run policy decisions through this board. This is not a matter of course.
You have to understand that we have an obligation to protect this airport and its airspace. You have a contract obligation to do that by accepting grants. If you look at one of the grants, the covenants are that thick, and that's one of the things. And I'm sure in boards past, even before my time, there was a direction to staff to ensure the protection of our approaches. And that's an outstanding obligation that I think that we have to apparently review and people to understand what that obligation is.
I would say I don't misunderstand the obligation to this airport. The problem is that, you know, we have on our agenda approval of a $16,000 grant or a $16,000 expense. This is a much bigger deal than that and needs the authority of the board behind it. It has to come through us. Whether or not we're going to rubber stamp it, it doesn't make a difference. It has to come through the board and be voted upon by the board as a whole in order for it to have effect.
Okay, Ms. Oliver, your comments are duly noted into the record, and we will move on with the agenda item. Any additions or deletions to the consent agenda?
I have none.
Hearing none, motion is in order.
I move approval that there are no additions or deletions to the agenda. Is that what he's looking for?
Number
No, we're looking for...
Oh, you're looking for number 7, okay.
We're looking for a motion to approve the
Consent agenda. I see. I move approval of the consent agenda, 4 items, I believe, as presented.
I second the motion.
It's been moved and seconded that the consent agenda as detailed within the agenda be approved. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same side, motion carried. Moving on to agenda item, let's see, I think I skipped the,
We're good.
We're on
yeah,
eight.
minutes, the minutes were taken care of. An agenda item, Secretary's, Treasurer's Report. Mrs. Coppola?
Hi, good morning, everybody. Thank you for being here. We're going to go through the accounts receivable, income statement, and balance sheet, and I will ask Mr. Parrish to please comment on those.
Sure, we can quickly go through the financial review year-to-date. For the month of December, we were over budget in revenue by about $330,000. We were over budget in expenses by about $40,000, to gain of about $262 over our proposed budget. The variance for the year is a positive $586,000, or $292,000 for the month, $586,000 for the year. So we continue to do well. The next page in your packet is the accounts receivable. We currently have $52 outstanding in these 60 to 90 days, and 91 and over, 14,000. But I believe if you look to the right, that the majority of those were paid in full, if not partial payments from each of the 3 that were out. And let's see, we also, well, that was November, okay. And then if you go through the balance sheet or the income statement, it reflects what is in the financial review on the screen. Any specific questions I can try and answer, but we're doing fairly well for the year. We're matching what we thought we would do, pretty close. We're continuing to monitor on a monthly basis our income per enplane passenger, which is the driver for a lot of our, or most of our income, as well as looking at the effects of Uber, Turo, and the other entities that are operating on the airport to the income. I will note that in December we made a little over $10,000 from Turo, which is our first full month of Turo operating under their new contract. So it's surprising that so many transactions are taking place, but now at least we know about them, and This is a one-year contract with them, kind of figure out what they're doing, and then we can proceed with a long-term contract. Any other questions?
I have a question, Mr. Chair. James, the Soturo, I have an account with those guys, and, it's, you pick up their cars that are for rent on-site, online, so how do we tie into that revenue stream?
Well, any
Because it's
transaction
like-
that takes place on the airport, you can't do it without an agreement with the airport.
I see.
So we have an agreement with them that we get 6%? 6% of every transaction that takes place.
Okay.
And we have a location where they can do their transactions so that they're not backing up or causing interference with the airport operations.
So they can do that separate from an air ticket?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Will they be needing more space? Because of all the people moving here from north?
Well, theoretically, their transaction takes 10 to 15 minutes, so someone pulls in, picks up a car, and drives off. The unfortunate thing is it requires 2 cars, so someone else has to take the owner of the car away. So we're working with them to make sure that transaction isn't happening on the curb, because obviously we don't have enough curb space to have people doing commercial business on the curb.
Jim, I have one more comment. We always have the PFC and our check register just kind of hanging in the middle there. Could we maybe add that as like 8D, possibly? Because they're just always kind of stuck in the middle.
It's just something for your review. It's
Sure.
really not part of the financial statement. So, I mean, if anyone has any questions on the PFC,
Yep.
it's just part of your package.
All right, thank you.
Any further questions on the financials?
No, so we'll file them for order, please.
Moving on to agenda item 9, liaison reports. I think we've covered the liaison reports with the city of Punta Gorda. Moving on to the Board of County Commissioners.
I have no report.
Next item, the MPO of the Metropolitan Planning Organization.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. That is my committee. We had a busy few weeks associated with the MPO. I'll start off with something off-site here that wasn't local. The MPOAC meeting was held in Orlando, and that was on Thursday, January 27th. Myself and Mr. Harris attended, but we actually had a little discussion with the FDOT secretary, so that's the number one guy for the DOT. We have a new executive director, Mr. Mark Reichhold, I think that's how you pronounce his last name, but we came out of retirement from the DOT, and I think I've forwarded you I'm sorry, I can't remember his name. Kelly, for distribution. But, the new executive director is doing a great day. As a matter of fact, he gave a report on his first 47 days in office. But we went over the legislative updates, all the legislature documents that we're following. And we actually went over an MPOAC survey that we conducted for all the board members and all the staff directors which were kind of all over the place and inconclusive. But we had the usual report with the FDOT and the Federal Highway Administration and the Federal Transit Authority. But we went over some personal business related to the MPOAC. But we did join a new organization, and it's a Mileage-Based User Fee Alliance. And it's a national organization, MBUFA. And we're everybody's on the cutting edge of the user fees for automobiles because of the electric battery situation. So we're on the cutting edge of that. We elected new officers, and so that takes care of the MPOAC. I have our package if anybody'd like to see it. Then on a local level, last Thursday, was it Thursday? Friday. It was Friday, yes. We had a joint MPO meeting with Lee County on Burnt Store Road, and we have it annually. But I think we did have a report from the District 1 Secretary, LK Nandam, I think is how you pronounce his name. But what was interesting, we went over the Burnt Store improvements that Charlotte County has accomplished. that Lee County has not accomplished, and they're out another decade on their improvements. So I thought that was kind of interesting. And we're talking about forming a subcommittee of Lee County, Collier County, and Charlotte County to coordinate transportation issues. But and Commissioner Deutsch, he kind of led the way on our Purple Heart Highway initiative through Charlotte County. But then, once that board meeting was over, Charlotte County MPO conducted our regular meeting, and we really only had one issue on that on our agenda, which was our 2022 safety performance measure targets, as it relates to traffic fatalities, major injuries, accidents, that type of stuff. And we study a 5-year rolling average on average annual fatalities, average serious injuries, annual fatality rates, and you compare our 5-year rolling average with the states, and we're actually doing pretty good. But our goal is, of course, 0 fatalities. 0 serious accidents was our target that we set. So anyways, that's my report on the MPOA and MPOEC.
Thank you, Mr. Hurston.
Yes, sir, you're welcome.
Mrs. Coppola,
Yes.
Community Liaison.
I've been to a couple of places. After this COVID seems to be on the downslide, a lot of places have not been having meetings. However, the Port Charlotte Women's Club, I was invited there also to give an update of airport activities, which I've done. A lot of people asking, a lot of these women live in different parts of the country, and a lot of them now don't want to drive, and they do want to fly. So that was interesting to talk to the ladies. I've been to the Charlotte County Liberty Caucus group, and we heard candidates for county commission from districts 4 and 2. That's an interesting group also. Invite interesting people to come and talk to us. And one of the sad things, but happy at the same time, we had a goodbye ceremony for our own Commissioner, Don Lee, and his son and niece came, and Commissioner Hansick and myself and Paul were there, along with several other people. And it was a loving tribute to a fine man. I'm probably going to cry, but Jeannie Benjamin was there also. Sorry. Roger Eaton's office is offering free passport pictures to anybody whose passport is about to expire, and you can save yourself $16.50. It's Saturday only, starting at 8 a.m. at his office. And I'll be there too. And that's my report, sorry.
Okay. Mrs. Oliver, state legislation.
Well, Mr. Parrish and I went up to Tallahassee at the beginning of the month, and Jerry Paul, our lobbyist, took us around. We had a really good trip. Our Charlotte County School Board happened to be up at the same time, so that was great overlap. We got to meet with Senator Albritton, Senator Gruters, Majority Leader Grant. I got to individually meet with a few other reps and Governor DeSantis. We are currently in the budget on the House side for $1.5 million, and we are not currently in the Senate side. So we're hoping that towards, as things get further through session, that we end up with that full $3 million. I know there's a lot of folks working to push to get us that full funding for our airframe and maintenance and AMP program building. So that's hopefully moving in the direction. You know, all we can do is be optimistic. As to House Bill 445, the TNC bill, which would limit the fees that airports are allowed to charge to like Uber and Lyft to $2. Currently, it's as dead as anything, which is good news, but you know, all sorts of things can happen the last week of session. So it's just something to keep an eye on as we move forward and keep being loud and keep bringing it up. That's all I have.
Okay. Moving on to item 10, our attorney's report, Mr. Carr.
Yes, I was always pleased to report to the board a couple of things. We've worked on a number of leases, some modifications to the concept regarding favor. We're going to modify that to be more of a license as opposed to a lease. This has to do with sales tax issues, but it's going to be better for everybody. That continues to be in the process of reworking. I'm sorry, I think that's back to them for a final review is what we're working on. Of course, you reviewed the Punta Gorda office space lease that we've spent some time with. I'm standing here with some documents relative to yet another purchase back of rental space that's being closed by Mr. Hackett at my firm, and is concluding that. I have the ever-present task of dealing with Gulf Contours and the abatement agreement they're under. I've communicated with him again, again, no response. I had staff go out and document that the fire damage still remains the fire damage. He has done nothing about that, despite his prior representations to both the board and myself that he was going to have that fixed. He has done nothing nor responded to my inquiries relative to the contract for doing that. As you know, the abatement agreement that we entered into required him to report quarterly to me as to what he was doing to transition from this facility to anywhere else. He has yet to provide me any reports despite repeated requests. We are now approximately 6 months into the 1-year abatement period. Doesn't look like anything's changed. He remains a leaseholder for tenant subject to the abatement agreement. He is essentially non-responsive to me.
Wow.
Other than that, nothing.
Okay, thank you for your report. Moving on, agenda item 11, our CEO's report.
Certainly, quickly, I can go through the development update. The spec building, we're still developing the RFQ, and I'm kind of slow rolling that because of the pricing that we're seeing. I don't know that this is the best time to be building spec buildings. So we're going to get that out, but it'll probably see it in the next couple of months. The self-service fuel facility, which we rejected the bids originally, we're going back out with some additional design requirements, hoping that that will lower the cost. The costs that we received were significantly higher than our existing self-serve fuel facility, which we put in a number of years back. And when I say significantly, I'm talking 10 times. Terminal planning study is underway. We had a very good meeting with our planning people this week, and they're going to do we're done with the number crunching. They're going to go into graphics next. But we're doing that in hopes that we can get some of the money that has been set aside for terminal development in the new bipartisan infrastructure bill. There is $1 billion annually for terminal development that's currently not eligible under the CIP program with the FAA. And of that, it's $1 billion annually for 5 years. Of that, 20% goes to small hub airports. And we're looking for about 30 to 35 million over that period. So it's about twice what would be allocated to us just on if you took the 80 small hub airports in the nation and divided evenly. We are one of the fastest growing, and I think we're situated well to get some money. But we will see on that, but we're doing the legwork so that we're in line and eligible for that. The rental car study is kind of being incorporated into the terminal area plan. Go through the design projects. Taxiway D, we continue to work forward on the design. It is a total rebuild of Taxiway D. The money should be in place with the FAA. The real project is going to be the phasing of that as we have to relocate and move how the airport operates as we move through Taxiway Delta. The 50 by 50 box hangers, we're waiting on pricing from the contractor. The inline baggage system, the schematic design is in progress. That's a very slow project because the FAA or the TSA has to approve and review each section, and they are not swift in their reviews. The FBO hanger, we should have a GMP, a guaranteed maximum price, by May. We do have some pricing from them. It is, as we would expect, more than we had originally budgeted, and we're working to try and trim some of those costs off of it. We do have multiple people looking to kind of piggyback on that hangar that would like to build a second and a third one. Either we build it and lease it back to them or just lease them the land. So it is encouraging that I think over the next 2 years, you're going to see 4 to 5 large box hangars be built on the GA ramp. And the roadway network improvements, today we'll be accepting the grant from the DOT. We're going to be putting that out to bid in March, and hopefully we can do the major part of the construction in front of the terminal during that 1 week. We will be shut down for runway improvements. Construction runway 422 rehab is underway, and we just received the permits for the wetlands, the second part of the wetlands, and we will be paying for our credits. That's already approved through the grant and through the board, so we'll be cutting that check and getting that done. Building 207 hangars and the 600 series hangars are going to the building department shortly, and they are ahead of the schedule that they originally provided us, so we're excited about that. The pavement, if you guys have looked, the pavement's completed around the General Aviation Center, which also includes a full parallel for 927 that we added on to that, and then the General Aviation Center itself is on track to be completed late March. We'll probably have a ribbon cutting 30 to 60 days after it's completed. We still have internals, furniture, and a lot of fitment to go after they complete their part of it. So we'll keep you updated on that. But marketing update, I'm going to hand that over to Ms. Miller.
Hey, good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
A lot going on. I have in the report, all the highlights from media, marketing, community, advertising. But I handed out an updated airport information brochure map. As y'all go out in the community, I know the commissioners do some speaking engagements. Please, I have a stack here, and I have plenty more at my office for y'all to take with you to share with the community. We updated it with the destinations map and incorporated Sun Country in there as well. We have a couple new photo op spots. So we have 3 photo op spots now, one in ticketing as people depart that says catch you later. Another one in the community corridor that connects baggage claim and ticketing that artist Larry Palmer painted. And one right outside baggage claim with the kayaks that says landed in my, or stand-up paddle boards, that says landed in my happy place. And those 2 were partnerships with the VCB, the tourism department. So it incorporates both of our logos, and we encourage people to hashtag FlyPGD and Best Side Outside. So hopefully those will catch on, and if you have friends that are visiting, encourage them to take a picture, post it, and share it as well. And the new brochure map also mentions the PGD Air Center, the new Junction Bar that's in the gate area, which is really cool. So I just want to bring that to your attention, and if y'all need anything in the community as you go out and do presentations, please let me know, and I'm happy to support you. Thanks.
Good to know.
All right, and the aviation report, Mr. Pavement.
Yes, good morning. So for the aviation report, we had a really good January. As expected, our passenger count was up over 50,000 as compared to January 2021, almost as high as our busiest January in calendar year 2020. For fuel sales, our avgas was down a little bit as compared to previous January. However, our jet sales were up considerably, and we're glad to see that both in the general aviation side of the house as well as commercial. A couple other things that we're following, the merger between Spirit and Frontier. Typically in airline mergers, there's winners and losers, and so with that, if Department of Justice allows for the merger to take place, those 2 airlines, they overlap in about 30% and of all the markets, so we're hopeful that the outcome shows that there's possibility that we might be able to get some traffic either back from Frontier, if that's what the airline's going to be called, or some new traffic from Spirit. So we're watching that one closely. And one of the other items that the entire industry is facing is employee and pilot shortage, crew shortage, as well as ground crew. So we're not immune to it here. The numbers indicate at the highest point a couple of years ago, there was about 750,000 employees in the airline industry. That number is about 720,000 right now. So there's demand for travel. However, the airlines are struggling a little bit to get employees to meet all that demand. So we'll be watching that one closely as well.
Mr. Duncan?
Go ahead.
Thank you. Mr. Duncan, I was looking at the list of cities, and I had a question from somebody. Did we lose the Charleston flight? Is that one no longer?
Yeah, unfortunately, it's not on the schedule for a little while, so I took it off the map, but
Yeah.
we're hoping, fingers crossed, it comes back.
Okay,
Sorry.
thank you.
Mr. Chair. Gary, the 720,000, what's that number associated with?
That's total employees with U.S. Airlines.
Oh, okay.
So that's crew, flight attendants, maintenance workers, everybody.
Thank you.
Any further questions on the CEO's report? I'd like to remind
Mr.
everybody
Chair.
that all this information that we go over here is available to all the board members in advance of this meeting. They have an opportunity to go over it and develop any questions which are normally asked here, as well as all this information, including the financial statements, are all available on the website in advance of the meeting. So you can really get into the nuts and bolts of the operation of the airport authority itself.
Mr. Chair, if I may, Jim, this would be a little bit of work for staff, but I think it'd be a good idea for the audience if, as you talk about, give your development update,
Put it on there.
we could just show, you'll ask for next slide, and we can flash it,
Okay.
if we could.
Exciting.
Yeah, oh, I know.
You
It
and
is.
you and I will be excited as engineers. But
Well, I think Commissioner Deutsch, and I think the city will be excited. I know
Might be
there's
a
some
little
other
hard
people.
to see.
we can
blow it up.
throw up the diagram, so at least we
Yeah,
know
there
what
you
we're
go.
talking about. Okay.
Yeah.
Maybe a picture of the
Yeah.
project. We
Yeah.
don't need all the
No.
history of how we're going through the bidding process and that type of thing. Okay, any old business?
No, sir.
No hearing, no old business. We'll move on to new business. The first item is a agreement with the Florida Department of Public Transportation and a grant agreement.
Yes, before the board is a PTGA, Public Transportation Grant Agreement from the DOT for the roadway improvements. This is something that has been on the shelf for a long time. We met with the new intermodal liaison for DOT, and 2 days later she called us and said she was going to go ahead and fund this. It's a really good project. It adds a new lane in, a new lane out, as well as another lane at the curb. So the PTGA, as well as the resolution that is required by the FDOT, is in front of you, and need board action.
Mr. Chair, I move that the board accept the FDOT Public Transportation Grant Agreement, execute Resolution 2022-02, and authorize the CEO to execute the grant agreement
As presented?
as presented.
I'll second that, Mr. Chair.
Okay, we have a motion and second for the board to accept the Florida Department of Transportation Public Transportation Agreement with its companion Resolution 2022-02 and authorize our Chief Executive Officer, Mr. Parrish, to execute the grant agreement. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, motion carried.
Thank you. The next item is something that was not in our original budget. As we transition from the current FBO location to the new FBO location, our Allegiant fuelers, our jet fuelers that are working specifically with Allegiant, which is the majority of our jet fuelers, we have one that stays in the FBO. I don't want, nor does the tower want, those trucks crossing the runway every time they need to get over to the ramp. So we're working with the tower and with TSA for a new access point onto the ramp, but the physical truck location and the people will need to be at the fuel farm. And so right now, we have no location for them to sit, no location for them to use the restroom, no computer access. So I would like to purchase a temporary structure, a portable office building for them to have a place to get out of the sun, do their paperwork, and then hop in their trucks and go do their fuelings. There's a few manufacturers. We're working with one right now, but I'm hoping to get a few other prices. But I'd like the board to approve a not-to-exceed cost of $30,232 to purchase this not very attractive temporary building for them to use. We will also be able to use this for construction offices in the future. We can offer it to contractors at a cost to them.
Are these things hurricane-proof?
Oh, yeah.
They are tied down.
Bolted into the ground?
They are shipping containers, so they're meant to be on ships across the Atlantic and the Pacific, and they're very sturdy.
I think we'll need a motion for first and second, and then go into discussion.
Mr. Chair, I move that the board approve the purchase of a 20-foot long by 8-foot wide container converted to office and bathroom facilities from Falcon Structures.
Well, I would, if possible, just not
Yes.
to exceed. I'm still working on.
Okay,
some
so
other
we'll
pricing.
remove from Falcon
Yes.
Structures for a cost not to exceed
30,000.
$30,000, there it is, $30,232, plus the $5,000, oh no, that's
that's
included in the
included.
total cost. Hope people can follow my motion here, I can't.
I have it underlined.
As presented.
I second the motion.
We have a motion and seconded to approve the acquisition of a temporary structure in the amount not to exceed $30,232. Any further discussion?
I do. Jim, does this require a building permit?
My answer, no.
Okay, that makes sense. There's no construction.
No, there's no construction. We'll be tying into existing water and sewer through a meter.
And this will be ours forever?
It'll be ours forever.
Okay. So do we get a bill of sale, or we get a deed? How's that
I
work?
think you get a bill of sale.
Bill of sale, serial number, all that type of stuff?
We'll put one on because we have to.
Okay, I got you.
I assume you're going to pick an appropriate color that,
Yes, that we get a choice of colors.
And Jim, one quick question, I apologize. The fact that it's a one-trip trailer means it's probably a type 1, and because they described a couple types in there, and I guess the type 1 may have been on a ship for 20 years, but if this is a one-tripper.
This is a one-trip trailer, so
Okay.
it went from most likely China to us, and then it would be destroyed or recycled.
okay.
Thank
All
you.
in favor of the acquisition of the temporary structure as presented, not to exceed $30,232?
Aye.
Aye.
All against, same sign. Hearing none, motion carried unanimously. The next item, Mr. Parrish.
Do we have the graphic? Do we have the graphic for the
Yes.
maintenance
I
facility?
know the board members have it. I don't know if you got it for you.
No, I don't have one.
You don't
Okay.
have one?
So there's a graphic in your package that shows a proposed maintenance facility and then some modifications that'll be required to the site that is currently occupied by Gulf Contours. We are about to start construction on the fuel farm, additional tanks. That agreement with Allegiant to build that is done, and they are in the midst of negotiating or actually, we've negotiated the contract, and then they will be starting. So if you look on that, on Mooney Avenue, you can see the location of the portable office building, the pink tanks that are going in, the location for our 4 fuel trucks. My concern is the interaction with the Gulf Contours deliveries and their employees and our, what is now 1 million+ gallons a month of fuel that we're pumping. We're getting how many loads a day on average?
We're averaging 10.
10 loads a day. So there, 10 semis a day are going in, and then we're refueling our trucks 20 times a day. So we need to separate those two activities. So this is a two-pronged thing. I'd like to start the development of a new maintenance facility. It will be operations and maintenance, because our operations department is losing their facility as we transition out of the FBO. We were releasing that to the airlines that are operating here as they need room to expand. And then new offices for maintenance, as well as a new maintenance facility and a new storage facility. In the future, if Gulf Contours leaves, I would transition that building to our fuelers and then a shipping and receiving, since we're not going to be able to use that for maintenance in the near future.
If the board would indulge the chair, I'd like to have a discussion on this before we get into a motion to approve or disapprove. I have a couple of questions in advance of a formal motion. Number one, I totally support a new airfield maintenance building. I think I brought it up a few years ago, and that way we can get rid of what I refer to as Tin City.
Yes.
And so it's long overdue. It's going to probably be an expensive project. I do have a problem, and I don't know how far the evaluation has gone at its location, in as much as the facility is across an active road as opposed to being on the inside of the fence, where most airfield maintenance facilities, in my experience, are located, where the guys don't have to go through a couple of control gates to move their mowers and their equipment. And I also had a question that the design of this facility, I noticed you've got an engineering firm that's going to design it as opposed to an architectural?
No, just the site.
Just the site?
Yeah, well, this is a schematic. We haven't engaged in architectural. So I just wanted to get this on the radar, and I'd like to start the site design so we know, get some preliminary costs, the building cost with the building cost. And we collected a few other airport maintenance facilities that have been built in the last few years, and kind of did some schematics based on that.
Okay. And that brings in what you've already brought up, Gulf Contours. That thing is supposed to go away in, what, another 6 months?
I have some comments on that, but I was waiting for the...
to me, that's not, it's not looking at the overall ALP and where you might put a building like this, where Gulf Contours is. My position is that that's not a very stable building. I think it's, of course, I'm not an engineer. I haven't been into it, but it would need a lot of help. And that, to me, seems like it's a better location for a facility. And I don't understand the relationship of putting the ops and the airfield maintenance together. I'm sure you guys got an idea or a plan of how you want to do it. I think that we just need a briefing on it. But I have no problem with going ahead with such a facility, because I imagine you're probably talking $1 to $2 million for a facility that's going to serve our needs. That's or more. I've had some experience with these things, and when you get into a maintenance building like this, you really don't want to build a metal building, because people have a tendency to drive through metal walls.
No, so we're looking at
tilt slab
tilt wall.
or precast concrete slabs, that kind of stuff. So, but those are all details that staff need to get into. I think the idea of the board direction to move forward with it, but I think we should have an opportunity to review this as it goes, especially on the site.
So there were 3 sites looked at in the master plan. This is one of them. The other ones are in my opinion, would impede future aviation development. And keep in mind, Golf Course Boulevard will be closed from Mooney forward in the near future as we do the next phase of the 1533 development, which was to get Mooney out, or Golf Course out of the RPZ. So we will be pushing Challenger all the way through to Piper, and then Golf Course will literally end at Star except for access to Mooney.
Yeah, those kind of details weren't readily apparent with the information that was provided to the board, so.
I'm just at a point where we need to start planning. I mean, last year in February I started planning and then that was reversed, so I need to get this going. And honestly, the work on Gulf Contours is probably not necessary if the building is going to come back to us. If it's not, and I don't want to assume it is, I want to make sure that I have presented enough information to the board that we're not going to have an incident where a truck backing up full of cabinets runs into a fuel truck and then the airport director is asked, why did I allow that to happen?
Yeah, why would you allow that to happen?
And you've sat in the chair, so.
Paul was first.
Well, I was going to wait for the motion. I have a problem with the existing site improvements, $164,793 when we have an abatement agreement with Gulf Contours, which Mr. Goen is not in compliance with. And 6 months left, where the building is supposed to be turned back over to the airport. My question is, for our attorney, Mr. Carr, what is our options?
As to Gulf Contours?
As to Gulf Contours, yes, sir.
They remain the entity remains a holdover tenant in the premises. Its lease has terminated. It's a holdover tenant. We have agreed to abate removal of them from the premises, provided they comply with 4 contingencies, 2 of which they're in default of. My professional opinion is they're in default of the abatement agreement. As a result, you could proceed with your removal today if you'd like. Or you could wait until the term is over, or you could do it at some time before that. I would note that we requested quarterly updates of his anticipation of moving or removing himself from the premises so that we could best judge how we would go about instituting a cause of action should we need to do so. Again, he has failed to respond to me in any way as to any plan to move. So your options are to proceed immediately, to remove him from the building, wait until to see if he makes any quarterly statements. That would be in the last quarter, it'd be 3 months from now. And if he makes no progress towards giving me a plan for removal, you could proceed then. Or of course you could wait for the abatement agreement to terminate and proceed then. I would note to the board that the abatement agreement gives a long and detailed history and notes that Mr. Goen promised that when he came here and begged for the abatement, that he would not ask for any extensions or continuances of that process or of the lease. So those are your options, now, 3 months from now, or at the termination of the abatement.
The problem is $164,793, and we're supposed to get the building back. I don't support spending that money. I'd rather see everything go as agreed upon.
Before I go to Mrs. Oliver, I agree with you're saying, Paul, and I don't know if, as far as staff and their work is concerned, that they need to take in consideration that that building probably won't be there. I think we still have an obligation on this abatement thing that we kind of talked about a year that he'd be allowed to before. And I think we need to honor that commitment that we're going to do it for a year. And then how that fits into the planning and all this, I don't know. You'd have to be a staff evaluation.
Well, it's in 6 months, you know,
Yeah.
are we really gonna, is this really gonna be able to take place in 6 months as you planned?
No.
No.
No, but I mean, let's be honest, I was planning to move into, and we had budgeted, I think, $250,000 to redo a lot of the buildings so it would work for staff. So I'm moving forward with the assumption that we're not going to get that building back. And because I moved forward with the assumption that we were a year ago.
Correct. Well, we have an agreement. He is not in compliance with the agreement. How much more can we keep going and to commit this kind of money? How much more can we go?
Let's get Mrs. Oliver's comments and we can continue our discussion.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would suggest that we perhaps have a workshop regarding this issue and give the Goins an opportunity and notice that this would be on the agenda. Because I'm looking at a tenant that is current on their rent, current on their taxes, as far as I've heard. I've not heard that they've breached those two agreements, and that employs 14 people, including some who are, you know, have different abilities or than, you know, others. So it's providing good jobs for people who might not otherwise be employed. So I'm also looking at the project report from today, where we are going to be constructing a replacement hangar for building 207 because we're destroying that building. So if we have a history of replacing buildings that we need for one tenant, it might be something to consider that we might want to do the same for this tenant if we require that particular piece of land, if that's in the best interest of the airport. I think it's important to be fair to a 25-year tenant that is current on rent and taxes.
Okay.
Well, could I just clarify that 207 is as a land lease? So they
right.
own that building.
Right.
That's,
I think that we've been down this road before, you know, and we've, the correct word, abatement, we went to go for a year. And I don't think we need to rehash all of this. But and I agree with your thought process that maybe we should have a workshop on this, because there's a lot more moving parts than just his building. It's the location and the design, and you got to get somebody to design it and work on the site and all that. And maybe those things should all be considered in a workshop. I mean, this project does have the consequences for Gulf Contour, but I had always assumed that they were going to be gone within that 1 year abatement period. Unlike you, where you're assuming that he's going to be there, or the building is going to be there.
yes. I have, honestly, have huge concerns about the traffic once we start parking our fuel trucks there. Our 10 loads a day with semis, our 20 loads that we're filling up for our fuel trucks, and then the traffic.
And there's also a security question of that fuel farm.
And I agree with that too. We should be controlling access to the fuel farm. It has been an issue since the board decided, and this was decided long before my time. I think Mr. Quill made this decision.
Raise your hand.
We knew you were here for a purpose.
To take maintenance out of that facility. But let's be honest, we used to have 4 fuel tanks there, and we filled them up once a week. Now we're getting 10 loads a day. The airport has evolved since the decision was made. I think this layout, if we can ignore the maintenance facility for right now, this layout would continue to allow a tenant to operate in here, or would continue to allow the airport to operate in here without impeding on the fuel farm. And in reality, if a new tenant moved in there, there is some, it's a 25-year-old building. I mean, it needs, structurally, it's fine. Visually, it needs some upkeep.
Well, the pleasure of the board, do you want to consider this item, or do you want to go to a workshop? We do not have a meeting next month. I know it's always a busy month in March, but if we need to squeeze in a workshop for, half day, it could probably be done. It's the pleasure of the board.
Mr. Chair. James.
Yes.
Is this a major modification to an approved site plan with the county? Or is it just an individual site plan submission?
Just an individual
Just
site
an
plan.
individual site plan. And for Swift Mud, are we talking a 10-2 cert, or you got to modify the master?
It's a modification to our master drainage.
Okay. How much, what kind of volume's out there? Eighth of an inch?
It's just the eighth of an inch.
Eighth of an inch, okay. So really what you're looking for is maybe as a Plan B, you're just looking for the board to approve for the site design and approval of the of this site as presented to us, as a,
Yeah, I would like to get the
To be
sites-
ready.
I'd like to get the site schematics started.
yeah.
And then bring back next month a contract for architectural.
So I'm talking about approval for site design and approval, or do we need, what's the term you're looking for there?
Well, honestly, if we're looking to go to a workshop, we can just hold off on all
Okay.
of that. I just want to make sure we understand that there are things that need to be progressed now. One, I'd invite all of you to go to our maintenance facility. It was an old furniture storage warehouse that, because our maintenance facility blew down in Hurricane Charlie, we moved into, and because the old maintenance facility location is prime airside, we've never rebuilt. And we did that when we were a small GA airport. We're considerably larger, considerably more, much more equipment, and we have one lift. We just put a second lift outside to, work on our tractors and our lawnmowers. It's not a well-functioning facility, and I just don't think it's fair for our staff to continue to be told they're going to get a new facility and then that.
So Jim, this you've worked with staff, you've looked projected out, and so this facility you presented to us can actually work anywhere, on any site.
We could move that facility, and that facility also, with the right design, would allow us to blow out one wall and continue to expand it.
Yeah, and so, I mean, like you say, site design and schematics, you could have them on the shelf, and they could be easily used on a different location. You said we approved 3 other sites, or 3 total sites?
The master plan had 3 sites.
Master site plan.
When does Gulf Course Road get cut off?
24, I believe, is the plan.
So it would be in the same time frame of this thing going up,
Correct.
more or less. And that makes a difference on where that, you got it right now. Okay. So what's the pleasure?
If I might make a motion, I would move that this board set a workshop to come up with creative win-win solutions that will allow us to meet our long-term planning goals and complete necessary capital improvements, while also, maintaining a viable manufacturing business on the airport premises.
I think we need a workshop, so I'll second the motion.
We have a motion and a second to establish a workshop. I'm not, any discussion?
Discussion.
Okay.
I think the overall picture of trying to work together with the public and tenants is a good long-term thing to talk about. But I think what Jim needs right now, and I agree with it, would be, we're not talking a lot of money to basically have a plan B in place just in case things fall apart on golf contours and we can't go where we want to go. Personally, I think it'd be a good idea to have that on the shelf just in case. That's my opinion. But, and I'm not opposed to a workshop.
I think the workshop is a good idea. I don't think we ought to put any limitations on the workshop as expressed. And the workshop might also include a education on navigation easements.
Basically, what you're proposing is an open workshop.
But it's an open
Yeah.
workshop, and we'll develop an agenda with any subjects that any commissioner or board member would like to have, or there may be some input from the public. They may want to look at something closer. We can do that. So we need to all check our calendars at some point in time.
We have to vote on it.
Yep, let's,
Okay, so we have
we're talking March, correct?
so we have, well, the motion is limiting. Your motion is limiting.
I would make an amendment to my motion, if it meets your approval, Mr. Andrews, to have an open workshop that will include, but not be limited to, discussing matters involving golf contours, the planning of the new maintenance facility. We can discuss navigation easements. Let's bring in, Mr. Carr can give a presentation if he'd like to. We can bring in a land use attorney. Any of those things would be wonderful. Whatever the board's pleasure is.
I second that. We need a workshop. It doesn't matter what we're discussing, we need a
Yeah,
workshop.
and everybody is aware of the fact that you can't make a decision in a workshop. Okay, we have a motion and a second to schedule a workshop sometime in March. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Should we set it?
Yeah, anybody want to set a date?
What, James, what is your schedule with some of the things you have going that we can
The
try not
7th,
to conflict with?
the 7th through the 11th,
Good or bad?
I can do it. And the 21st, 22nd.
I'm open on all of that, so.
Maybe,
I'm not good on the 21st.
How about a nice 3/11?
Real.
Friday?
I unfortunately, I have a conflict that day.
All right.
what about the 21st, Catherine?
Can't do it.
22nd?
22nd would be okay.
That would give us
Yep.
enough time to,
Okay, March
Would you-
22nd at 9 a.m.?
That's fine.
Sounds
I'm
good.
good.
that gives us plenty of time to put the dog and the pony show together. Right. Okay.
I think we need a vote.
Gotta bring the dog and a pony?
March 22nd, I
I
think.
guess we do.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to schedule a open workshop on March the 22nd at 9 a.m. in the board conference room. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carried.
That's gonna be here?
Yes.
Yes.
I believe the last item is a change order to Stellar for the 24-unit T-hangers. The schematic design, we indicated we wanted a 42-foot wide door. The schematic design gave us 42-foot wide hangers. To get the door in there, we got to increase the hanger by a few feet on each one. So there is a slight increase in steel. We've been working directly with the steel manufacturer, and I think the $36,792.37 is a very fair price for the additional steel, concrete, and erection and electrical costs.
That is reasonable. So the width on each hangar, Jim, increases by,
We're going from about 500 to 525 feet, so
Okay.
over 12 units, 2 foot per unit, one
Yeah.
on either side of the door.
I got you.
Mr. Chair, I make a motion to approve the new T-hangers, building 606 24 units, change order 2, and approval of the CEO execution with Stellar Development in the amount of $36,792.37 as presented.
I'll second that motion, Mr. Chair.
Any discussion on the change order? to our T hangar Stellar Development in amount not to exceed $36,792.37. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, motion carried unanimously. Okay, moving on to item 14 on the agenda, Commissioners' comments. Mrs. Coppola, we'll start at your end.
Just thank you all for being here. A little concerned about Gulf Contours because he's been here a long time and I don't understand what's going on there. I hope somebody comes to the bottom or gets to the bottom of what's going on there. Other than that, thank you for all, for being here, and I look forward to the March 22nd meeting, and we'll see what we can do to resolve this.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Are we going to allow public comments at the end of this? Did we leave?
I was going to open it.
You were
up.
going to open it.
Yeah.
up. Okay.
We have a county commissioner out here that's
Who?
wants to speak to us.
Anyways, it's good seeing Gary Quill and Mark,
Yes.
Mark, one of our prime engineers, and Paul. Where'd Paul go? He disappeared with Kimley Horn. But it's good to see Mark and Greg. Good to hear your comments. But Jim, who do I talk to about anybody that wants to absolutely positively put money down and get in on the hangars?
Have them call Lisa.
Lisa? Okay. I would do that. I got a guy that just jumping up and down to get involved, or just he wants to buy one, or whatever he needs to do. But with that being said, I enjoyed the meeting today, and good seeing everybody. Staff did a great job, as always, and I appreciate it. But with that being said, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, Mrs. Oliver.
No comments, thank you.
Okay. Mr. Andrew.
Okay.
I'm
Yep.
sorry, I didn't speak loud enough.
I'd just like to thank everybody for attending. I can't improve on what Mr. Hurston said, so I'm going to say see you on March 22nd.
Okay. The chair will recognize Commissioner Stephen R. Deutsch, who'd like to address the Airport Authority.
Here.
Yeah, he's been back hiding. He's been back here hiding.
Let's see, how
Four
much
quick
did you
items
give
I want to
them?
share with you, some directly and indirectly, and some you know about, and a couple are still a little stealth, but we're going to see some major economic development activity happening around the airport by the end of the year. A couple other items, just real quick. I want to point out that, and thank you folks that showed up last Wednesday at the ribbon cutting for the Military Service Memorial. They tell us we had substantially over 600 people that are there. We appreciate your support. We appreciate your cooperation. We appreciate your attendance. We had a couple of flyovers. We had the UEs at the beginning. We had the T-28s at the end, and thank you for your help with that. We had everything but the fireworks. And I had to go through, and it was interesting, it's a side story. I had the fireworks all set, but we had to go through the fire marshal, and then I needed someone to get a $3 million bond, and I said, the guys doing the fireworks, one fired a mortar and a bazooka in the service, and the other was a munitions marine, but they weren't qualified. But we did have some red, white, and blue smoke bombs at the end, so I just want to share that with you. Last thing, we're having extraordinary population expansion. The normal ride here, as you all know, no matter where you're coming from, takes twice as long. And in the last couple of weeks, we had two young people killed in motorcycle accidents, and I know one of the families. And Tuesday morning, we had a young man on a bicycle. For some reason, we seem to get the worst drivers from the other 49 states seem to come here, and everyone seems to like to drive in the right lane to make their left turn, and then their left turn when they're not going anywhere. But I just sort of share, and I mentioned this at the commission meeting, we sort of kind of have to be patient and put up with it while we're going through this accelerated population explosion that I call APE. The county is looking ahead down, through the MPO and through the county. We're trying to aggressively look ahead to meet our infrastructure needs as the future. Most of the units that you see in the paper, all these numbers, they were numbers that were planned before. And the scary thing, general development, as we all know, had one job to do, and they were really so good at it, selling lots, and there's still about 125,000 lots that can be built on here. So anyway, once again, thank you for your support at the Gaines Park, and appreciate those of you that showed up. The event was fantastic, and the whole community was involved, so I thank you. Stay safe.
Thank you.
We're there to work with you guys, you know that.
I would agree that the event was excellent.
By the way, one of your commissioners has, because he's got a friend that drives him crazy, has put a lot of time and effort into making that park happen.
Oh, it's terrific. It's great
We're
for
out
the
there at night with
kids.
his hoses watering the sod, so thank you very much.
It's also great if you have any grandkids like I do, and take them there. There's a whole
The Space Force
section.
is open, have you seen it?
Yes.
I went out there
amazing.
Sunday, there were about 40 kids there. And,
It is so much fun.
you been
It
there?
really
I
is.
took my kids out this weekend. They love that
Yeah.
rocket
you
ship.
can't
Are
go
you
down the
kidding?
slide, they wouldn't let me, so.
And they have tables and chairs you can sit at.
Yeah, we actually have
Bring your
people
lunch.
asking for more, part of the ultimate design, and we'll be starting that in about a year.
Yeah.
Plus or minus, probably plus the way government runs, but we're gonna have a splash pad there, and in the rough design I have, we're gonna have our first responders, so there'll be a fire engine, the water coming out of it, and there'll be a deputy's vehicle, and so it's a work in progress, but the park is gonna have national significance.
Yeah, I
It's,
believe it.
unlike any other. And the cool thing, I'll say this as I leave, I was checking out the day before the ribbon cutting. I was there a lot, but we were checking out the site and going over where we're gonna put them. And I saw a couple go over to the first responders more. I think there were 3 or 4 of them. And before they left, they kneeled and prayed there.
Oh, that was nice.
That's sort of kind of, what it's all about, so it was hard to explain. I have no idea who they were, and I've seen veterans coming up and taking their pictures by the memorials and stuff. But thank you guys for your support.
Yeah.
Jim, thank you, I'm sorry you missed it. Hope you came back with an airline.
Ah.
We're hoping to. Thank you.
I'll take my time to adjourn the meeting.
Thank you.